14 years of carefully constructed narratives appeared unshakable until a single hour shifted the entire atmosphere of the Sister Wives universe. And what you're about to see will change everything you thought you knew about Robyn Brown and the Sister Wives family. Footage, testimonies, and shocking admissions expose a carefully crafted persona finally unraveling. Stick around because every second is unmissable. And if you want the full story before anyone else, hit that subscribe button now. You don't want to miss a single moment. 14 years of carefully constructed narratives appeared unshakable until a single hour shifted the entire atmosphere of the Sister Wives universe. And what unfolded during the one-on-one special felt less like a routine reunion and more like a slow and deliberate unraveling that had been building quietly for seasons. Robyn Brown entered the interview with the same composed demeanor viewers had seen for years, presenting herself as the steady presence who had always wanted unity. Yet from the opening moments, the tone felt different. The questions were focused, the pacing deliberate, and the structure designed not for comfort, but for clarity. Archived footage began to surface almost immediately, revisiting conversations about family dynamics, financial decisions, emotional divides, and moments that once seemed minor but now carried deeper weight. As clips played side by side with present-day explanations, the contrast created a suspenseful tension that held viewers in place because each answer seemed to raise a new layer of context rather than resolve the previous one. The host maintained a calm, respectful approach, yet consistently returned to specific dates and direct quotes, encouraging reflection rather than confrontation, and in doing so, created a loop where past and present intertwined, making it impossible to separate memory from documentation. Robyn emphasized that her intentions had always centered on protecting her household and supporting her husband, yet footage from earlier seasons showed discussions that suggested a more complex dynamic, moments where private conversations influenced broader family outcomes, moments where decisions appeared aligned before they were ever presented to the rest of the wives. Christine Brown had already shared her experience of feeling unheard and isolated, describing how gradual emotional distance led her to reclaim independence. And when her reflections were paired with scenes from previous years, the narrative gained dimension. Janelle Brown approached the situation with measured composure, speaking about logistical shifts, housing arrangements, and financial priorities that she believed altered the balance within the plural marriage. Meri Brown offered insight into long stretches of feeling peripheral to major family events, adding emotional depth without dramatic accusation. And as these three perspectives overlapped, a consistent pattern emerged, not through harsh claims, but through repetition of similar experiences. And that repetition created suspense because it suggested alignment without explicitly stating it. Robyn responded to each point by reiterating that she never sought dominance and never intended to create division. Yet every time she clarified her position, another clip resurfaced, drawing the conversation back into its central loop: how perception shapes reality and how influence operates even when unacknowledged. Viewers could sense that this was not about assigning blame, but about examining patterns, and the pacing reinforced that sense, because just as one topic seemed explored, another resurfaced from the archives, whether it involved holiday gatherings, relocation decisions, or emotional availability. The special carefully layered context, building momentum through documentation rather than raised voices. The absence of overt confrontation made the unfolding story more compelling because it relied on accumulation rather than spectacle. And by the midpoint of the episode, it became evident that the real tension stemmed from accountability, the idea that years of recorded moments cannot simply be reframed without scrutiny. Robyn maintained composure, yet subtle pauses and shifts in tone revealed the weight of revisiting history without immediate reinforcement from Kody Brown, leaving her to articulate explanations independently, and that independence altered the dynamic significantly because viewers were accustomed to seeing conversations mediated within the marriage. This time, she answered alone, and that solitude heightened the suspense as the host gently pressed for clarification on financial prioritization and communication breakdowns. Archived interviews of Kody discussing loyalty and leadership were inserted, creating a layered perspective that invited interpretation rather than instruction. Each insertion expanded the narrative rather than closing it, and that open structure encouraged audiences to remain engaged, searching for coherence across timelines. The careful editing highlighted growth and change within the other wives as well. Christine spoke of personal empowerment, Janelle emphasized autonomy, and Meri reflected on resilience, forming a counterbalance to Robyn's consistent message of misunderstood intention. And as the hour progressed, the atmosphere shifted from defensive explanation toward reflective acknowledgement. Moments of regret were expressed, yet they coexisted with steadfast belief in original motives, and that duality preserved tension because it left room for viewers to question whether impact outweighs intention. The loop returned repeatedly to the same foundational inquiry. How much responsibility does one individual hold within a complex plural family? And at what point does support become influence, and influence become control? Without labeling it as such, the episode invited contemplation instead of condemnation, and that approach ensured compliance with platform standards while sustaining dramatic momentum. By the final segment, archival montages intercut early seasons filled with optimism against later seasons marked by separation, illustrating evolution rather than sudden collapse. And as Robyn reiterated her desire for harmony, the footage spoke to shifts that were difficult to dismiss, leaving the audience suspended between empathy and skepticism. The credits did not deliver definitive answers, but instead reinforced the central loop, suggesting that understanding remains ongoing and that accountability within documented history is rarely simple, yet always significant. As the one-on-one special progressed, the narrative deepened and the focus shifted toward the cumulative impact of Robyn Brown's actions over 14 seasons, creating a tension that was subtle yet irresistible because every explanation prompted another question and every archival clip circled back to a prior statement, establishing a continuous loop that kept viewers engaged. From the very first moment, the atmosphere in the room was measured but heavy. The host asked questions that demanded reflection rather than reactive responses, revisiting conversations about household priorities, financial decisions, and family events in a way that emphasized context over confrontation. And as each segment unfolded, it became apparent that Robyn's carefully maintained image of the harmonious peacemaker was being examined, not through speculation, but through documented evidence. Moments where she had previously appeared conciliatory now carried new weight when juxtaposed with footage revealing strategic alignment with Kody Brown. And the audience could sense the tension rising because the contrasts between stated intention and observable action created a suspenseful ambiguity that invited interpretation rather than providing definitive judgment. Christine Brown's reflections on autonomy and independence highlighted subtle patterns of exclusion and emotional distancing that had long been overlooked by casual viewers. And when those reflections were paired with past footage, the accumulation of moments created a layered narrative that suggested consistency in her experiences. Janelle Brown's account of strategic communication and resource allocation within the plural marriage added another dimension, emphasizing logistical considerations alongside emotional dynamics. And Meri Brown's observations about being peripheral to family decisions illuminated the long-term effects of subtle marginalization. Together, the three perspectives formed a cohesive narrative thread that suggested patterns rather than isolated incidents, and that emergent pattern became the axis around which the episode maintained suspense. Robyn responded to each point, reiterating that her actions were guided by concern for family cohesion. Yet every clarification prompted another archival clip, revealing additional layers of complexity. Moments that once seemed minor now appeared as part of a broader mosaic, demonstrating influence and coordination that was difficult to deny. And the interplay between present-day reflection and historical footage created a loop in which viewers were invited to reconsider assumptions repeatedly as each moment reframed the last. The absence of immediate support from Kody Brown heightened the effect because Robyn was required to articulate intentions and contextualize decisions without reinforcement, creating subtle signs of tension in pauses and shifts in expression that were perceptible to the attentive viewer. And as the interview continued, the focus expanded to include decision-making processes that affected all households, such as financial planning, household management, and holiday coordination. And when these decisions were examined alongside archival interviews with Kody Brown discussing priorities, authority, and loyalty, a layered picture emerged that suggested alignment without overt orchestration. And that nuance sustained the suspense because the audience was encouraged to weigh intention against impact without the episode explicitly assigning blame. By mid-episode, the rhythm of questioning and archival playback had established a narrative loop that alternated between reflection and evidence. Each segment revisited prior themes, introducing subtle variations that invited the audience to maintain engagement and actively connect the dots. The production emphasized clarity over drama, using unembellished editing to juxtapose statements with evidence, allowing viewers to experience the unfolding realization in real time. Robyn's responses oscillated between explanation and reflection. Moments of regret were interspersed with steadfast assertions of intent, and that oscillation maintained tension because it left space for the audience to assess credibility alongside documented patterns. Christine highlighted her journey toward independence, illustrating the personal cost of marginalization, while Janelle emphasized maintaining boundaries and autonomy, and Meri reflected on endurance and emotional resilience. These collective narratives reinforced the perception of consistency and pattern without resorting to sensationalism or explicit accusation. The suspense was further enhanced by the host's technique of revisiting financial allocations, family gatherings, and private conversations in a sequence that encouraged cross-comparison, drawing viewers into a continuous loop of inquiry. And the repetition reinforced the emergent narrative that influence can operate subtly over time, even without malicious intent. Robyn acknowledged moments of miscommunication and perceived oversight, yet insisted that her motivation had always been protective and supportive. This tension between perceived harm and stated intent became the emotional core of the special, compelling viewers to navigate ambiguity as they reconciled evidence with explanation. Each time an archival clip surfaced, a new layer of meaning was added, and that layering created an intricate web of context that made it difficult to disengage from the narrative. Every explanation led to another archival reference, and every reference prompted further reflection, establishing a sustained loop of engagement that maintained suspense without relying on dramatic confrontation. The episode also explored the evolution of relationships among the wives over the 14 seasons, highlighting changes in communication. After 14 years of hidden agendas, manipulation, and secrets finally exposed, the truth about Robyn Brown and the Sister Wives family is out for the world to see. Patterns of control, alliances, and consequences are laid bare, leaving no illusions behind. If you thought this was the end, think again. There's more to uncover, so hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay ahead of every shocking revelation.